Hello, all you freedom-loving people. Elon Musk's creation of a new party may cost him more than he ever imagined. President Trump welcomed Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu to the White House, and the Pentagon announced that they are sending additional defensive weapons to Ukraine. Okay, let's get into it. Elon Musk's move to form a new party has been questioned by many and praised by others, but the world's richest man obviously won't be swayed by the negative comments. He posted more about the agenda for the America Party on X. The party will take a pro-Second Amendment, pro-Bitcoin stance. In response to a post that asked about the party's position on guns, Musk declared in a post, "The Second Amendment is sacred." Musk also responded to a question about whether the party will embrace Bitcoin. He wrote, "Fiat is hopeless." So yes, the growing interest in alternative currencies such as crypto, stablecoins, and digital assets are due to the inevitable demise of fiat currency. He is also aware that it's more difficult for a third-party candidate to run for the presidency, so this is not among his short-term goals. Musk noted in another post saying, "Backing a candidate for president is not out of the question, but the focus for the next 12 months is on the House and the Senate." The Wall Street Journal analyzed that cancellation of the EV mandate and his feud with President Trump would also put his electric car factory, Tesla, in double jeopardy in China. The article said, "For a while, Tesla was the hottest car on Chinese roads and Musk was the toast of Beijing. But Tesla has been at risk of being overtaken by its Chinese rivals as Tesla exports its technology to China, which is spurring on the competition and the rapid growth of the local electric car industry. This is because of the CCP's long-standing practice of trading market for technology." In the past few years, Western companies have been trying to enter China's market of 1.4 billion people by hook or by crook. But the CCP's demand on these Western companies is to hand over the company's core technologies. And several years later, once the Chinese companies have mastered these technologies, then the CCP is going to start giving trouble to the Western companies that provide the technology because it doesn't need them anymore. And the Chinese Communist Party has been practicing the market for technology trick for decades. But the failure of countless Western companies did not stop Elon Musk from cooperating with the Chinese Communist Party. He set up a factory for Tesla production in China, and he also handed over the core technology for electric cars as is customary. Because Musk is a rare genius in the tech world, many people still think he has a way to crack the CCP's trick. One way is to keep advancing his technology, and now Musk is perfecting the self-driving car. However, it seemed to some that he did not have a clear understanding of the evils of the CCP and that he had overestimated his own abilities. The Wall Street Journal article said Tesla's market share has shriveled as other Chinese automakers become more popular. BYD, which makes both EVs and batteries, and battery giant contemporary Apex Technology, or CATL, recently said they each had developed new technologies that allow users to charge cars in just 5 minutes. Nonetheless, Tesla has not lost Beijing's support. And since he announced his support for Trump's presidential campaign last year, the two men's close relationship has actually multiplied Musk's value in Beijing's eyes. On one side, Chinese leaders see Tesla as a poster child of successful foreign investment and a useful ally in helping China build a green economy. But more important, after President Trump won the election, Beijing has been unable to understand the thinking of President Trump's core team, and Elon Musk was one of the few people that Beijing could contact who was still close to President Trump. According to the Wall Street Journal, in January, Chinese Vice President Han Zheng met Musk in Washington, and he told Musk that Beijing hoped he could play a constructive role in U.S.-China relations. Therefore, the tension between the U.S. and China reinforces Musk's position in Beijing. The article also said, as trade tensions with the U.S. heated up this year, Chinese Premier Li Qiang made clear that Tesla's local operation wasn't to be targeted by any retaliatory measures. However, Musk's value in this area has diminished considerably since his relationship with President Trump has soured. People who consult with Chinese officials say that because of the Musk-Trump feud, Beijing no longer views the Tesla chief executive as a geopolitical asset, and they will shy away from publicly courting him. On Monday, President Trump announced new tariffs on a slate of countries set to take effect on August 1st, including 25% tariffs on Japan and South Korea. On True Social, President Trump warned that the tariffs could be increased if the countries raise their own trade barriers or fail to address long-standing trade imbalances with the United States. In addition to the 25% levy imposed on Japan and South Korea, President Trump issued letters imposing tariffs on 40% on Burma, 40% on Laos, 30% on South Africa, 25% on Kazakhstan, 25% on Malaysia, 25% on Tanzania, 32% on Indonesia, 35% on Bangladesh, 35% on Serbia, 36% on Cambodia, 36% on Thailand, and 30% on Bosnia. On the same day, President Trump also warned that countries aligned with BRICS and anti-U.S. policies would be subject to an additional 10% tariff as the BRICS bloc of developing countries is meeting in Rio de Janeiro. President Trump said in a post on Sunday evening, "Any country aligning themselves with the anti-American policies of BRICS will be charged an additional 10% tariff. There will be no exceptions to this policy." The group's leaders appeared to take aim at President Trump's sweeping tariff policy in a joint statement on Sunday, warning against unjustified unilateral protectionist measures, including the indiscriminate increase of reciprocal tariffs. Although they did not call the U.S. by name, they voiced serious concerns about the rise of unilateral tariff and non-tariff measures, which distort trade and are inconsistent with WTO rules. And Russia's Dmitry Medvedev responded by saying, "BRICS is gaining authority. Trump announced that an additional 10% tariff would be imposed on any country that supports BRICS policy, so we're doing everything right." The BRICS group includes Brazil, Russia, India, China, South Africa, Saudi Arabia, Egypt, United Arab Emirates, Ethiopia, Indonesia, and Iran. However, the summit leaders group photo appeared to be a bit cold, as only 8 of the 11 leaders were present. The most important ones, Russian President Vladimir Putin and CCP Chairman Xi Jinping, were absent. Chinese Premier Li Qiang participated on Xi's behalf, while Putin chose to speak via video message from the Kremlin. The Guardian analyzed that the BRICS countries are not only plagued by internal contradictions, but they are less cohesive than before. However, China's major foreign propaganda platforms are still vigorously publicizing that nearly 90% of respondents believe that the BRICS are expanding their influence and strengthening their voice in global governance. According to the original plan, de-dollarization was the key topic of the BRICS summit. However, due to the divergence of internal interests of BRICS countries and the lack of a unified alternative mechanism, it's difficult to get rid of their dependence on the US dollar in the short term. The BRICS countries also face insurmountable difficulties in achieving the goal of establishing a common digital currency and moving away from their dependence of the US fiat dollar, as there are huge differences between the countries in terms of geopolitics, economic structure, and financial integration. Both China and Russia are opposed to the West and have geopolitical interests that are very different from those of the more cooperative nations such as South Africa, Brazil, and India. And India made it clear in May last year that it had no intention of participating in the de-dollarization process. Replacing the dollar requires finding an alternative currency and an alternative to the SWIFT payment system, such as Stellar. Given that China accounts for 65% of the GDP of the BRICS countries, the question of whether the Chinese RMB can assume this anchor currency role is on the table. However, China's capital controls and the fact that the RMB is not fully convertible have hindered the internationalization of the RMB, making it difficult for it to become a reliable international alternative currency. Treasury Secretary Scott Bessent, in a recent interview on Bloomberg TV, also called the replacement of the US dollar with the renminbi as a complete fallacy. He said, their currencies are not convertible. So how can they become reserve currencies? He explained that there are still 1.4 billion people in China who want to remit money out of China. They have capital constraints on remittances. The necessary condition for a reserve currency is free trade. So, is it possible for the euro to replace the US dollar as the reserve currency? European Central Bank President Christine Lagarde recently hinted that the euro's time for a reserve currency may have come, but Besant disagreed with Lagarde. He said that if the euro reached 1.2 against the dollar, the Europeans would complain that it was too strong. They are an export-oriented economy, so Besant believes that the EU should be cautious. On Monday, President Trump signed an executive order in order to end federal subsidies for solar and wind energy facilities. He mainly pointed to the unreliability and to the dependence of green energy on foreign-controlled supply chains. In his order, President Trump stated that these types of renewable energy sources are expensive, and they compromise the nation's electric grid, and they threaten national security. The order puts the One Big Beautiful Bill Act into action, and it cuts off federal tax credits for renewable energy projects that don't begin construction before the end of 2026. Wind and solar projects that start construction after that must be placed in service by the end of 2027 to qualify for subsidies. Before this change, the law allowed developers to receive a 30% tax credit through the year 2032. In his order, President Trump said ending the massive cost of taxpayer handouts to unreliable energy sources is vital to energy dominance, national security, economic growth, and the fiscal health of the nation. The new order now directs Treasury Secretary Scott Bessent to take action within 45 days of the enactment of the One Big Beautiful Bill Act. This action is meant to enforce the end of tax credits for solar and wind energy facilities. The order also tells the Interior Department to review and remove any policies and regulations that give special treatment to wind and solar projects over more reliable dispatchable energy sources like coal-fired power plants. Actually, the new order comes at a critical time. It aligns with a new statement from the Department of Energy. Yesterday, the Department of Energy said in a statement that the planned retirement of more than 100 gigawatts of power generation capacity by the end of the decade without firm and timely backup sources could increase the risk of blackouts in the United States by 100 times. The warning was part of the Evaluating U.S. Grid Reliability and Security report that was released by the DOE. The report criticized the radical green agenda of past administrations for generation retirements and delays in adding new firm power generation capacities to the grid. While the 104 gigawatts in retirements set to be replaced by 209 gigawatts of new power generation by 2030, only 22 gigawatts of these replacements are set to be firm generation. The DOE said we must renew a focus on firm generation and continue to reverse radical green ideology in order to address this risk. Firm power generation refers to power that can be generated at all times, including coal, natural gas, and nuclear. They are in contrast to non-reliable power sources such as wind and solar, which are dependent on factors like the weather. President Trump welcomed Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu to the White House for dinner on Monday evening. Netanyahu arrived at Joint Base Andrews, just outside Washington, D.C., and joined President Trump and other top officials for dinner. The dinner marked their third meeting this year. The meeting was focused on achieving permanent peace with Iran, securing a Gaza ceasefire, and expanding the Abraham Accords. At the start of the meeting, Netanyahu handed President Trump a copy of a letter that he had sent to the Nobel Committee nominating President Trump for the Peace Prize.
The President has already realized great opportunities. He forged the Abraham Accords. He's forging peace as we speak, in one country and one region after the other. So I want to present to you, Mr. President, the letter I sent to the Nobel Prize Committee. It's nominating you for the Peace Prize, which is well deserved. And you should get it.
Thank you very much. This I didn't know. Wow. Thank you very much. Coming from you in particular, this is very meaningful. Thank you very much, Bibi.
Thank you. Thank you for everything you're doing.
Thank you.
One of the main goals of the meeting was brokering another round of hostage deals as part of a ceasefire agreement between Israel and Hamas. The latest ceasefire proposal by the United States that was backed by Israel was recently submitted to Hamas by mediators, but Hamas has yet to accept it.
Mr. President, there was a security incident in northern Gaza today, right around the time that the Prime Minister was meeting with Secretary of State, Mr. Steve Witkoff. Does that, a number of IDF soldiers reportedly have been injured, possibly killed, does that in any way put a wrinkle in ceasefire negotiations with Hamas?
I don't think so. They want it. They want to meet and they want to have that ceasefire. So I don't think so. Steve, could you respond to this? You know about it?
Well, I think it's terribly unfortunate. Terribly unfortunate. We were just talking about it, how tragic it is, but we have an opportunity to finally get a peace deal, Mr. Prime Minister, as we discussed, and I'm hopeful for it very quickly.
When asked about the possible relocation of Palestinians, Netanyahu called it a free choice.
Is your Palestinian relocation plan still on the table? Is there a plan? Has there been any progress in finding countries to accept?
Bibi, why don't I let you answer that question?
Mr. President,
Wait a minute. Wait, he's got to answer the question.
I think President Trump had a brilliant vision. It's called free choice. You know, if people want to stay, they can stay. But if they want to leave, they should be able to leave. It shouldn't be a prison. It should be an open place and give people a free choice. We're working with the United States very closely about finding countries that will seek to realize what they always say, that they want to give the Palestinians a better future, and those who, and I think we're getting close to finding several countries, and I think this will give, again, the freedom to choose. Palestinians should have it, and I hope that we can secure it close by.
And we've had great cooperation from meetings surrounding Israel, surrounding countries, great cooperation from every single one of them. So something good will happen.
And another main focus of the meeting was Iran.
We have scheduled Iran talks, and they want to talk. They took a big drubbing. I think when we hit the three sites, really, I would say the three sites, not just the one. The one was the big one, and it was deep in granite, and it was obliterated. It turned out the Atomic Energy Commission said it is obliterated. I would just want to take our hats off to those incredible flyers, the people that flew that big machine, and frankly, the mechanics and everybody else. I mean, they had zero. They flew for 37 hours with zero problem mechanically. I mean, when you think in carrying the biggest bombs ever, the biggest bombs that we've ever dropped on anybody, when you think non-nuclear, and we want to keep it non-nuclear, by the way. But they did a phenomenal job. It was an amazing job, and I think that was, I was talking to Bibi about it before, that was the very beginning of the end. It ended very quickly after that. I don't want to say what it reminded me of, but if you go back a long time ago, it reminded people of a certain other event, and is Harry Truman's picture is now in the lobby, in a nice location in the lobby where it should have been, but that stopped a lot of fighting, and this stopped a lot of fighting. When that happened, it was a whole different ballgame.
Also, reporters asked President Trump what might make him attack Iran again.
On future Iran strikes, what might make you have the desire to do another strike on Iran?
Another what?
Another strike on Iran.
I hope we're not going to have to do that. I can't imagine wanting to do that. I can't imagine them wanting to do it. They want to meet. They want to meet. They want to work something out.
Can you say
no, they're different. They're very different now than they were 2 weeks ago.
So, if it happens, when would the meeting take place, and what would be the basis for the talks with Iran?
But they've requested a meeting, and I'm going to go to a meeting, and if we can put something down on paper, that will be fine. That'll be good. I think they've gained a lot of respect for us. I think they've gained a lot of respect for Israel also. But they would like to meet, and we're going to have a meeting. Steve, when is that meeting going to be? Do you want to say?
Rather, very quickly, in the next week or so.
So we'll see what happens. I think it would be nice to memorialize it, put it down, but because of the incredible result of that attack, if you want to call it an attack, I didn't think it was necessary to have it in writing. I think we spoke. I mean, that speaks much louder than writing. But I can also understand why they'd want it. And they've been very nice. They've been very respectful. And it began by them telling us about 14. They had to do. You know what 14 represents, right? Do you know what 14 represents? Right? You know that, right? The number of bombs dropped. So it was, representative. We got them all.
Lastly, the dinner with Netanyahu aimed at expanding the Abraham Accords. The Abraham Accords, which was brokered by President Trump in 2020, led to the normalization of relations between Israel and nations such as United Arab Emirates, Bahrain, Sudan, and Morocco. And now President Trump wants Syria to be one of the next countries to join the accord. Yesterday, President Trump also revoked the Foreign Terrorist Organization designation for Hayat Tahrir al-Sham. This is the group that was led by Ahmed al-Sharaa when he seized power of Syria in December after overthrowing the previous Syrian president Bashar Assad. Right now, al-Sharaa is president of Syria. And regarding Saudi Arabia, Netanyahu's efforts to normalize relations with Saudi Arabia appear to be on hold, at least until the Israel-Hamas conflict is resolved. The Saudis have demanded a clear path toward the formation of a Palestinian state before they will agree to normalization of relations with Israel. And when asked about a two-state solution during the meeting, President Trump deferred the question to Netanyahu.
Do you think that there can be a two-state solution that creates an independent?
I don't know. I'd ask Bibi that question. You have the greatest man in the world to answer that age-old question, two-state. Go ahead. You give him your honest answer.
I think Palestinians should have all the powers to govern themselves, but none of the powers should threaten us. And that means that certain powers, like overall security, will always remain in our hands. Now, that is a fact. And no one in Israel will agree to anything else because we don't commit suicide. We want life, we cherish life for ourselves, for our neighbors. And I think we can work out a peace between us and the entire Middle East with President Trump's leadership. And by working together, I think we can establish a very, very broad peace that will include all our neighbors.
Last night, the Pentagon announced that they are sending additional defensive weapons to Ukraine. In a statement, the Department of Defense said, at President Trump's direction, the Department of Defense is sending additional defensive weapons to Ukraine to ensure the Ukrainians can defend themselves while we work to secure a lasting peace and ensure the killing stops. Our framework for POTUS to evaluate military shipments across the globe remains in effect and is integral to our America First defense priorities. A few hours before the statement, at the start of the dinner with Prime Minister Netanyahu, reporters asked President Trump about Ukraine, and President Trump responded that the United States was going to send some more weapons to Ukraine.
On Ukraine, Mr. President, are you planning to send more weapons to Ukraine?
We're going to send some more weapons. We have to. They have to be able to defend themselves. They're getting hit very hard now. They're getting hit very hard. We're going to have to send more weapons. Yeah, defensive weapons primarily, but they're getting hit very, very hard. Very sad. So many people are dying in that mess.
On July 2nd, the United States halted shipments of certain weapons to Ukraine. Then, on July 3rd, President Trump held a phone call with Russian President Putin. But after the call, President Trump said, "I didn't make any progress with him at all." Then Ukraine experienced the largest aerial assault by Russia to date on July 4th. According to the Ukrainian Air Force, 539 Iranian-made drones and 11 missiles targeted the capital city of Kyiv. Russia successfully struck 8 locations with 9 missiles and 63 drones, The rest were intercepted. Following the attack and after speaking with President Trump, Ukrainian President Zelensky said in a statement that the Ukrainian air defense was bolstered by international support, and this support played a critical role in preventing greater destruction in this attack. Zelensky also said that he and President Trump discussed joint defense production, purchases, and investing during the call. And that's a wrap for this episode. Thank you so much for your support of Front Page. Please remember to leave a comment below the video. This is really helping us to be seen all around the world. The more people who watch Front Page, the more freedom-loving people the world will have. And please hit the like button and hit the notification bell after subscribing. And please share this video with your friends and family because everybody deserves to know the truth.